Welcome to week one of Industry BrickTalks. And today it's a health and human services, I think is what it is, HLS. And we're doing scaling biopharma intelligence with the Databricks Agentic Clinical Ops ecosystem. Super excited to be here. I'm Mandy Ross. I'm your host. I am the community program manager for engagement here at Databricks. Today we have our awesome team who is going to present for us today. A couple housekeeping things to start with. If you guys have questions, please put them in. There's a little button in the bottom there that says Q&A. So I'm going to click start right now. And if you have a question, please put it in there. And we will hold all the questions till the end and answer them then. And I will read them in order that they're put into the chat. So with that being said, let's get started. I'm going to hand it over to the team.
Thank you. From our side, we are 4 people presenting today. Nick, my name is Neha, Trevor, and Art. Trevor will kickstart the presentation from our side.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So thanks, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Trevor Greer, and I'm a solutions architect here at Databricks. I'm joined by the rest of the HLS R&D think tank here at Databricks, including Neha Pandey, Nicholas Stephenless, and Art Malinock. Together, we've been building something we're calling the Clinical Operations Intelligence Hub.
Okay, so but before we dive into clinical ops specifically, I'm going to zoom out for just a second. AI is transforming every industry these days, as we know. We're seeing it firsthand across our customer base in financial services, in manufacturing, in energy, et cetera, as you can see on the screen. But now in healthcare and life sciences, the opportunity is just as massive, from single cell models identifying drug targets at Merck to clinical data abstraction, accelerating research timelines. And that's kind of where our story begins today as well. But here's the reality. Despite all the hype around AI, most organizations that we work with do still struggle with getting there. And that's not because the models aren't good enough or because the talent isn't there. It's because their existing data architecture is actively working against them. You know, siloed systems, fragmented data, manual handoffs, these are the real bottlenecks. So let's look at what that actually looks like in clinical operations. So whether you're a CRO or a sponsor, the intelligence you need to run a trial is scattered across disconnected systems. Site selection lives in one tool, patient cohorting in another, risk monitoring in yet another. And the bridges between them are people, they're manual processes, they are spreadsheets. And the cost of this fragmentation is real. We're talking about, you know, millions of dollars in daily delays from trial timeline slippage caused by siloed data and manual handoffs. Safety signals get missed because monitoring is reactive. And by the time you see a subtle anomaly in a traditional dashboard, it's already escalated. Traditional dashboards will tell you what happened, but they don't tell you what to do next, right? You're flying blind on the gaps that matter most. And this is the core problem that we set out to solve with this solution. So rather than trying to fix each of those broken handoffs I mentioned one at a time, what we did was we took a step back and asked, what if you had an intelligent layer sitting on top of all your clinical data that could reason across it continuously? And that is the Clinical Operations Intelligence Hub. Think of it as a team of specialized AI agents and tools, each focused on a different phase of the trial lifecycle, but all sharing the same data foundation. So the first agent and toolset tackles something every clinical ops team dreads: site feasibility. Today, that means weeks of pulling data from 5 different sources, building spreadsheets, debating in meetings. Our solution helps accomplish that analysis in hours and gives your project management a ranked shortlist that they can actually act on rather than, you know, weeks. And the second agent sort of flips recruitment on its head. Instead of waiting for patients to find your trial, it gives you dynamic cohorting, matching real-world patient populations to your protocol criteria, and mapping them geospatially to your site network. The third is an agent where it gets really interesting for risk and compliance teams. Instead of reviewing monitoring reports after the fact, this agent watches for anomalies in real time and flags issues before they become audit findings. And then tying it all together, a conversational interface. Anyone on the study team can ask questions in plain English across all of this clinical data. So no SQL, no analyst queue, no waiting. What makes this different from like 4 separate tools bolted together is that these agents share the same context, which is your lakehouse. That's the real unlock here. So that kind of brings up a important question. Why not just buy this? There are SaaS platforms out there for site selection and for clinical analytics. Why would we want to build something like this on Databricks? And the answer really kind of boils down to one word: ownership. When you build on Databricks, the models you train are yours. They learn from your proprietary EDC, CTMS, and IRT data, your trial history, your site relationships, your protocols. A SaaS vendor gives you their model trained on everyone else's data. We give you the model trained on your data. And then as your portfolio evolves, those models get smarter. And that's a compounding advantage no off-the-shelf provider can replicate. You also get everything in one place. Like right now, most organizations are stitching together 6 or 7 systems just to answer a basic question about trial readiness. With the Lakehouse, all of that data lives together, governed, queryable, and ready for AI. And that's what I think is kind of the most underappreciated advantage. You have data that no vendor will ever have access to. Your historical site performance, your enrollment velocity trends, your internal adverse event signals, that's data that actually makes these agents accurate, and it never leaves your environment. Of course, from a cost perspective, you're also replacing per-seat SaaS licensing with pay for what you use compute. As you scale across more trials, the economics only get better from there. And everything you've seen today so far, the foundation models, the agent framework, compound reasoning, that's all native to the platform. You're not integrating 3 different AI vendors. You're building on one complete stack. So with that context, let me hand it over to Nick on the team to show you what this actually looks like in practice. And we'll start with the site feasibility and selection agent.
Thank you so much, Trevor. So hi, everyone. I'm Nick Siebenlos, Solution Architect with Databricks, and I'm here to show you for the first agentic solution how we can disrupt the site feasibility selection process and bring real-world evidence to actually owning the decision-making process and going to where the patients are instead of just where trials have been conducted in the past. So our motivation for tackling this problem is that currently 30 to 40% of sites only enroll 0 or even 1 patient, and that brings a lot of activation costs, usually in the tens of thousands of dollars. A lot of trials miss their enrollment timelines, and every month of delay in this space leads to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in lost revenue. And this is all after a lengthy selection process that takes oftentimes weeks of analysis. And the Databricks solution to disrupt this is to go to where the real world evidence is, taking into account those historical performances, and turning this weeks of analysis into hours of work with explainability along the way. So with that, Tyler, if you could stop presenting, I will switch over to my screen. Sorry, Trevor, excuse me.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm showing the clinical trial site feasibility workbench, and this is targeted at the global site feasibility lead persona. So the goal here is to go from a protocol that's in the setup phase or has been shared as an RFP that you want to respond to and have a differentiated approach to, and ultimately go to a final shortlist. So the first step in this process, I'm going to select the protocol that I want to perform this on. In this case, I've chosen a multiple sclerosis phase 3 trial. We're currently in the pre-enrollment setup, and we're exploring what are the sites that I want to have in my shortlist, and ultimately turn this into a data product that I can share across my teams and use in a reusable way to compare against other feasibility analysis. So targeting, so phase 3 trial, targeting 600 patients in the US, first patient in date of August 1st. So I see before my first step is going to be to set some constraints. I want to set some minimum thresholds around the real world evidence for patient access scores, historical performance, operational scores, the site readiness, and protocol execution and compliance scores. So out of my initial list, you see all 93 sites still in the US are eligible. And as I start to set some of these minimum thresholds, we can see the individual individual sites fall out from this selection. So I'm just going to choose a lower quartile, so maybe 24, 25% on these minimum threshold scores, and I've set my risk tolerance as medium, and this can be configured for whether you are working in, say, a rare disease area or a more common condition. But this ability to set the threshold on what sites actually make it into your initial shortlist based off of your overall risk tolerance. So next, once I've made my initial thresholds, I'm going to move on to looking at the actual patient access with our geographic overview. And what we can see here is we're visualizing right now the competitor trials, the patient density, and our sites that made it through that initial selection based off of the minimum standards. And we'll go through and look at each of these. So first, we have our sites. And you can see we're already highlighting which ones have high performance, medium performance, and low performance based off of that initial thresholding we have. We can start to overlay that with the patient density and seeing how that actually aligns. And you see there's pretty good alignment. A few patient populations we don't have eligible sites for, but otherwise a pretty good match. I'll remove our sites and then look at the competitor trials, so where that matches up. And there's a lot of trials existing against where our real world evidence shows. And lastly, let's look at our competitor trials versus the individual versus our sites. And this is where we might ask a question. And an agentic solution that's part of this is our Genie, which allows you to actually have a conversation with the data with the real context being injected. So for this particular question, I might ask, which sites have the most competition? And while we give that a second to reply, just want to, again, highlight, we can see, all of this is configured to the specific evidence that we have for this trial. The competitor trials are coming from the full live view of all the trials registered with clinicaltrials.gov. And we see we could get an answer pretty quickly. Hey, for this particular trial that we're looking at, the US sites with the most competition are these particular sites. So some of them one of them has 3 competing trials, a couple of them have 2 competing trials, and a number have 1 or fewer. So that's a way we can actually talk to the data and have a real interactive exchange based off of the analysis we're doing in real time. Next, I'll move on to the ranking. So we see, based off of that initial thresholding, I have my relative scoring weights for patient access, the site readiness, operational, and the protocol execution. Based off of that initial shortlist, 21 sites made it in against my target of 600 patients. I'm forecasting 54 randomizations per month, so a duration of 12 months. And overall, that 12-month projected has me a little bit over target. Now, I want to highlight a real operational challenge that we see where you're not incorporating real-world evidence into this process. So if I change the relative scoring here, I'm going to move it up and then just recompute. And we see, just by taking that process, now the number of sites that actually fall into this area based off of my risk tolerance has dropped significantly. And now I'm actually under target. So this is a real challenge where if you're not using real world evidence to actually go to where the patients are being treated and you're just going based off of historical performance, you might be over forecasting your enrollment. And that's the exact type of process that leads to those missed trial timelines and overall lost revenue and increased cost. So I'm now looking through my sites that I have. This is my overall list of sites. I can see just the shortlisted ones first, but I want to probably add some additional sites to actually get closer to my target. So I'm going to go back to the all sites, and we can see there are a number that haven't quite made it in. Maybe I want to individually explore some of them to understand why they maybe did or did not make the list. I'll take this first one, which just missed the threshold. It's just below that 70% composite score. And we can see for this one, okay, it has a acceptable real-world patient access score. It's one of the stronger areas for this. And we can actually see, this is the explainability where you can understand what the actual drivers are. And to be clear, there are ML models that are, real ML models that are trained for each of these sub areas. again, based off of the information we're extracting from clinicaltrials.gov, understanding what were the actual drivers for real-world patient access, the operational performance, site selection, and protocol execution. And just looking at the real-world patient access, we can look at the individual state populations. Right now, we're looking at some of the primary drivers, the percentile rank among the indication of peers, and you even get an access model card, so you can look at, hey, this particular ML model that was trained, what was the process, what was it trained on, what were the data sources that were used, etc. And I, maybe approve this and say, okay, now I want to actually add this to the shortlist, and now with that process, having done this for maybe a couple times, I can go back to the view of the final shortlist, and we can see, okay, that increased my capacity a little bit, but I'm still a little bit low against the target. I've got my final site selected, the 19. This is my target annual capacity, and then I get a distribution here to see the region mix, the composite score, the composite tier score. So we see that there are elite performers, some strong performers, some good performers, and we have one that's in this below area. And then what does the actual enrollment risk look like for this area? And then finally, I'm able to go and save this assessment. So it's a data product that we can then reuse and use for comparison. And here I might want to call, I'll just give it the, the date we're working with. So 03/19/26. Save this assessment, and now I can return to my protocol selection. And should I now be another user of this platform who I want to look at this comparison, you can see, oh, those are the 19 sites that I just saved now that I can go and explore and create branches from. So ultimately, you arrive at this data product, which takes you from going just to where trials were conducted in the past to actually where patients are, owning the ML process along the way, getting the explainability so you can build trust along the users in this workflow, and going from this feasibility analysis that used to take days to weeks to now doing it in minutes to hours. All right, and with that, I will pass back to Neha.
Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Trevor, for setting the stage and talking about the problems and challenges. Due to time sensitivity, we are today trying to show two agents. So how, as you've heard Trevor talking about all the challenges with the, trial, starting a trial in the right way to, conclude, like actually conducting the trial when it comes to ongoing trial, right? And Nick showed you how you can do site selection in terms of making sure you choose the right sites to conduct your trial. But when your actual trial is ongoing, it is also important to monitor those sites and make sure that you do risk-based monitoring and compliance check on top of that. So what we tried, and when we think about typically a phase 3 trial with 50 plus sites and 10 to 12 15 countries and something like that, a CRA would typically be taking care of 10 to 12 sites. With that, they have to go through the risk-based monitoring, some of these KRI, calculating this, reviewing this KRI manually, and then there are a lot of documentation in terms of preparing the checklist for the site visit, and then creating the trip, post completion trip reports and all those kind of stuff. There are a lot of manual work involved and documentation involved that slows down the things. What we tried to do with Databricks is these are just demo that we created to show you the art of the possible, that what we can build with Databricks. A disclaimer here, these are not actual products. These are demos built on Databricks to show you what we can build on Databricks if you have your data on Databricks. Along with all these like live risk modeling, signal fatigue detection, regulatory risk scoring, we also have conversational agent, a chat agent that would scroll through your across study and give you some kind of analysis on top of that. So with that, I can share my screen, Trevor. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Let me know if you are able to see my screen.
We gotcha.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So what you see is another application. So this is built on Databricks with our feature called Databricks apps, and the data is hosted on Databricks. I see the questions from the group. Some of the you asked like how we connect with Viva, like CTMS and different systems and EHR. We can talk about that in question and when we go to Q&A, definitely. But we have connectors for that. So the application you see here, you can see a top level where you can select different studies. My bad. And then also you can switch the role in terms of if I'm a CRA, if I'm a CTM, if I'm admin. So right now, let's select the CRA view, where you see the site queue. These are not just randomly ordered sites. These are sites based on like priority. So some of them are medium, low risk, and you can see, right, this site would need attention soon because there's chance of 92% escalation. Now, there are other applications in the market which tells you the risk, gives the risk monitoring approach, but those are more reactive. And when we actually try to see those risks, those becomes the actual finding, and there's that kind of impact your trial in some way. So we try to take a instead of reactive, we try to take a proactive approach where not only we do the statistical risk-based monitoring, but we put some predictive analytics on top of it, and combined with Gen AI, develop create the insights out of those to give you understanding of how those sites are performing. Like, let's say if I select site 7 here, you see the details in terms of, okay, there are 10 subjects, there are 2 discontinued, there are 22 AEs, out of which 3 are serious, there are 26 deviation, and 16 are overdue. It also create the AI risk assessment where it tells you like, okay, there is a medium composite risk of 4.84 based on all the statistical risk monitoring techniques like Houston score and all, and then give you a recommended action in terms of conduct immediate targeted monitoring and focus on protocol adherence and etc. Then it also tells you like how the risk might progress in 30 versus 60 versus 90 days. You can see the KRI scores, Z scores, and AE profile and recent visits, right? And the open actions. Now, okay, now you have seen all the details about the sites. Now you want to plan for the visit. You do the start visit, you click on site visit, and then I want to create a checklist. So when I click on generate checklist, it will create a quick checklist of how I want to proceed with the site visit, right? So yeah, you can see that it's doing that work, creating all the checklist. And it is divided into different sections, like for example, statistical flag, regulatory essential documentation, informed consent, investigational products, AEs, protocol compliance. Okay, so once it's done, you want to take this checklist and plan for your on-site. Once you are on-site, when you are at on-site, you can see that these are critical statistical flag highlighted in red. All the red highlighted one are the important checklists that you need to take care of. You can log your findings. For example, I want to, let's say, for example, log a finding about, okay, this AE is not related to the treatment because the subject was on placebo. So it will log that finding, and then you can add your visit notes. There were couple of issues with subject John. Need to look into that. And then you can create a corrective action that logs into your CTMS. Check enrollment John. Create an action. So it will create an action for you and log it into your CTMS, right back into your CTMS. Once that is done, you need to create a report. So there are a couple of documents that you need to create once the studies, visit is completed. You need to create a trip report. You need to update your RBM, risk-based monitoring plan, and then maybe a follow-up checklist for the future visits. So these documents also you can add your own format and let it create a well-structured report. So as you see, it's created a trip report with site summary, visit details, enrollment status, adverse events, and basically you can download this report as well. Once all these reports are done, the action basically tells you all the actions, AI recommended actions that you need to take on these sites. For example, for this studies, these are the recommended actions, and then what are the current open actions, in progress actions that you have for the particular site. This is for the CRA view, but a clinical trial manager won't care about all these things. They just need to look at the portfolio level, how things are going. So the total sites, subject, and high risk sites. Risk monitor in terms of how the risk is there in the different sites, and then the action pane where. And then all these would be the roles can be controlled via Databricks Unity Catalog, which is our governance module. And then admin basically can see everything, the power user. Additionally, there's a chat agent that is you can use to ask questions, like for example, which sites need immediate attention, and it can answer those kind of questions to you. It'll take some time. Yeah. But with that, I would like to hand it over to Art once the answer is generated to summarize what we talked about today and how all of this is possible with the different tech stack that we use to build these applications on Databricks.
Hi, everyone. Give me 1 second. Let me just share my screen. So what's important to get across is not just that our customers can have this type of application, but they can build these types of applications in a fully HIPAA compliant manner with enterprise grade security controls. They can utilize all the latest Gen AI capabilities and model serving capabilities, whether their data application can work off of SQL warehouses and is more from an analytical perspective, or they need sub-second latency and they can utilize Lakebase. And all of this is done with Unity Catalog as their governance and security layer, the single source of truth for their CTMS, registry, and real-world evidence data. So all of this in a single platform is the real platform advantage that our customers have in building these types of applications within Databricks. You basically go from, for site feasibility, you go from weeks to hours. For cohort building, you go from a manual to an automated process. For risk monitoring, you go from a reactive to a proactive approach. And for study intelligence, you go from simple dashboards to conversational AI. And the emphasis is on the fact that getting all of these advantages, you're not losing out on safety or compliance, you're actually improving it. Because again, it's built on that single governance and security layer within Databricks on a secure platform. Another important thing to note for our customers is generally anytime data is used to make decisions that impact drug safety, quality, and so on, it falls under GxP compliance. So doing all of this within a platform where we can help our customers run it in a GxP compliant fashion is also extremely important. It's actually a non-negotiable. So what we can help them do is we can help them address some of the things like end-to-end lineage, access controls, and automated audits. But to be more specific, how do we help our customers with GxP compliance? We have to address the individual requirements like traceability, data integrity, auditability, and so on. For traceability, Unity catalogs complete lineage, not just data in columns, but models, notebooks, jobs, and so on. The ability for someone to understand that entire chain of events is extremely important. Having jobs and notebook history, having system tables and Delta transaction logs, all of these things can be utilized to understand exactly how a particular outcome or output was achieved. Data integrity is more fundamental. That's the reason why Databricks is an asset compliance system. We have time travel and versioning capabilities and audit logs to be able to answer very specific questions. Auditability is extremely important. You have workspace and account audit logs, query history, access logs via Unity catalog, and just in general system tables. And our customers can also be more proactive about these things by setting up alerts around certain questions from the perspective of auditability. Access controls and security are addressed by fundamental RBAC and ABAC capabilities with Unity Catalog. You can also have more specific row level and column level security. We integrate with identity providers and have very tight integration with Entra ID with automatic identity management. For one of the aspects of GxP is also that the validation process, and specifically to ensure that it's validated for the intended use. And so we support that. We support working on qualification of context, pipeline reproducibility in terms of ensuring that not just the output, but the jobs themselves and the code versioning and everything is available for our customers. And we help them with a customer-defined validation approach because each customer has to have their own val plan, their own way of qualifying the platform. For change control, you have features like Git integration with repos, jobs and pipeline versioning, Delta table histories, and so on. Reproducibility, the basic asset transaction foundation is the beginning of it, but you also have features like Delta time travel for ML. You have ML flow experiments and model tracking. You have version pipelines. For data quality, our customers can implement DLT expectations, data quality checks, and pipeline monitoring. And for record retention, of course, Delta Lake on ADLS inherently has some features, but one of the new features that can really help with very specific record retention is auto TTL, which essentially allows for a customer to define how much data is retained in a particular table based on a time field. And we also enable segregation of duties through workspace separation, Unity catalog isolation if that's necessary, and multiple environment deployments utilizing DABs, and as well as service principles to ensure that even devs necessarily don't have production access and they could deploy through service principles. And I'll pass it back to Neha.
Yep. Thank you, Art. With that, we conclude our sessions and open the floor for any questions we have from audience.
Great. So we had a bunch that were already answered in the Q&A section. And so I'm going to go ahead and look in chat because I know there are a couple that were in there. Let's see. Where are you getting your EHR/RWD data?
So to answer that, we work with multiple EHR systems. Trevor specifically works with healthcare customers, and we work with Epic. We work with other EHR systems. We can connect with their data through there are different techniques, whether to Delta Share or native connectors. There are multiple options possible. Trevor, you'd like to add something?
Yeah, most of our customers work with Epic, some with Cerner as well. But yeah, those data are ingested into the Lakehouse. In the case of these demos, these are just for demo purposes. But in the case of deploying a solution like this in a customer environment, it would depend on where you were getting your EHR data from. But bringing it into the Lakehouse is a standard practice. Most of our customers, it's coming from Epic or Cerner.
Cool.
I'll also add for the real world data for the site feasibility, we have a Databricks marketplace that allows you to, through Delta sharing, access a number of real world data sources. We have Komodo Health on there, Health Verity, which is one of the ones that I used in this. So there was actually a composite of Health Verity access data from the marketplace plus some synthetic data.
Awesome. And on the EMEA side, we also work with Chipsoft, which is one of the major EHR in the Netherlands area. So we've also worked with them on the EMEA side.
How does your interface to Viva CTMS?
So we have a connector for Viva CTMS, a native connector that we are going to announce in this quarter. It's going to be private preview soon, where you can connect to Viva, different Viva sources along with CTMS on CRM system directly through Databricks.
And to clarify, for the site feasibility agent, we wanted to make this as transferable to customers as possible. So the CTMS schema that I've used is representing what we get from the Viva CTMS and on the EDC data for metadata. That was the representative schema that I used.
Nice. Are the protocol formats going to align to the M11 standards?
We absolutely can. So that is with the interoperability that Databricks brings, we can work with the M11 standard. I didn't do it specifically for this one, but that as a capability is natural to Databricks and how it openly shares.
Awesome. What about outside the USA, ex-USA?
Yeah, so I think that I also saw a question around the country selection process, and so clinicaltrials.gov, so absolutely have a range of site selection data that also comes outside of the US. For the specific one that I demoed, it was a US focused trial. Other ones I have in here are more global trials. And we appreciate that in the selection process, there's oftentimes the narrowing down of which countries you want to execute first. And that would be a potential upstream function of what I just showed. And these are intended to be modular. So you can imagine just if you have, if you ultimately ended up with a data product that said, we're not just going to run this in the US, but we're also going to run this in US and Germany and Brazil, that would just filter down to what sites are initially being considered based off of the global access, and then filtering down to the real world evidence for what fits in those patient for those patients as well. And I should also add that that particular application is designed to be able to handle gaps in the data where you are missing, for example, portions of real world evidence or feasibility surveys that exist for the individual sites. It doesn't require the completeness because we know that that's not the real world example for what happens in this area. So it's intended to be able to proceed and not overly penalize any of the decision process, but just recognize where the gaps are.
Awesome. Cool. So I think that covers all of the questions in the chat. We had several in Q&A that were answered, which is great. So I just want to see, is there anybody else, any other questions for our wonderful attendees today? Any last questions for our audience, for our presenters here today? They're the experts. You've got them here right now.
Well, Mandy, while they come with questions, maybe I can just explain some of the ones that I answered in there because they might be applicable for people to hear.
Great idea.
Yeah, one of the ones I saw was, hey, can you incorporate Merck's internal data? And I would say this applies for anyone. A purpose of this solution is for you to go from just using whatever real world data that you see in a SaaS solution, or whatever's providing your SaaS solution, to actually being able to use the full breadth of your proprietary data. That's a big benefit of this. And instead of just being, everyone working off of the same small data set, you now get the benefit of everything that you know internally.
Nice. Let's see. Any other questions? I think that's it. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to our attendees. Thank you so much for registering and coming to this industry BrickTalk. I hope you've learned something awesome today that you can apply to your work moving forward. You're going to get a survey from us after this. We really appreciate you filling it out so that we can continue to hold these things and give really good metrics to our higher ups so we can keep continuing to do these. So thank you very much. You guys are amazing. Oh, wait, I have one more Q&A down here. Let's see what we got. Where is it? Please bring a sports use case, maybe football or Olympics. Ooh, interesting. Jake, take note. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. We'll see you later.
Likewise. Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Appreciate
everyone.
it.
Bye, y'all. Thanks.
Sure.